Hello and welcome again into my Zen, all ye denizens of dreams. I'm Stephen Berlin and today I'm going to be talking about the dynamics of dream emergence. Yes, I know I said I'd be talking about something else, but before you go out and proclaim that the curse of serpent speaks in forked tongue, I'm going to go ahead and subtitle this Geography and Navigation in Dreams, Part 1. It was my intention to discuss your 4 primary choices for getting around in a dream, for getting to your destinations, and then outline the advantages and or disadvantages of each. But in preparing that, I got thinking, before I start talking about how to navigate the dream state, it's kind of important to know what we're navigating and one important feature of the state that you really need to be aware of before we intrude upon it with our lucidity and attempt to influence it. So, what are we navigating? Well, you all should know this by now. We're navigating ourselves. You're navigating the unfolding contents of your unconscious mind in all the glory, splendor, power, good, evil, potential that's there, as described by all the great depth psychologists, Freud, Jung, Adler, all those guys. It's all your own personal, private, unique inner self. And I want you to know, I don't presume to tell you how to navigate yourself. If you disagree with anything I say in any of these talks, do I have any idea, what's going on inside your dreams? No. And I don't presume to, don't even want to. And the same is true. So anything I say is not necessarily the gospel. At least, in many cases, not for your own reality. Okay, well, I need to move on to what's important about the state that we need to understand before we start navigating it. Well, the dream state is different than our waking state for one obvious reason. Our waking state appears to our sensory apparatus as relatively stable. What's outside your front door today is probably going to be outside your front door tomorrow. Now, in dreams, things are constantly changing, constantly moving. So your dreams are moving forward. In fact, your dreams are constantly in a major transformation. Pardon the word, but I love it. I'd give it as a definition for dreaming, transformation, because your dreams are moving ahead really quickly by association. And when I say association, I mean every synonym of association, by correlation, by approximation, by analogy and metaphor and wordplay, like alliteration and rhyme. Your dream is making all these connections, and it's moving forward by those connections, which will be better demonstrated by an example I'm going to give. But before I do that, there's one kind of transformation that needs specific emphasis, and that is homologous variation. Now, the term homologous variant was coined by a Swiss biologist or biochemist, Claude Rifat, R-I-F-A-T, and I regret to say Claude is dead. He died in 2002, but thankfully, before Claude died, I think in the mid-'80s, he gave us this cult classic, conscious dreaming and controlled hallucinations. And in this, he coins, although he coins it the French term for it, so I'm not going to go into that. I'm sure the nation France will be grateful for that. Okay, but it's homologous variant. I'm going to spell that because I think it's an important word. H-O-M-O-L-O-G-O-U-S-V-A-R-I-A-N-T-S. Now, Claude had, in a pre-sleep state, a brief vision of a mushroom, which he would call a disattenuated image. And in his vision of the mushroom, he watched it in a matter of just a couple of seconds transform into a candle in an ashtray. And Claude concluded from that, accurately I think, that our memories store things by pattern recognition. In other words, we don't have a candle department in our mind and an ashtray department in our memory and a mushroom department. That what happened in this short visual that he had was when he saw a mushroom that his mind recognized the pattern as resembling and being connected with the image of a candle in an ashtray, which Claude apparently had seen sometime in his life or imagined. So that was a homologous variation. So that's a very important concept. Let me move on now to a dream to demonstrate these principles. Now, I've been having some issues with my computer lately. And so one thing I've been checking, my hard drive space is rapidly disappearing. So I checked it, and my computer presented me with a pie chart, which shows you what slice of the pie you still have left, to use. Well, anyway, I'm dreaming the other morning, and I dream of being in front of my computer screen, and I'm looking at my system resources again, evidently. But instead of a pie chart, my dream presented me with a bar graph. Now, I think the pie chart was the day residue, but instead of a homologous variation of that, my mind, I believe, used an association to a bar graph because they're both pictorial representations of data. So now I'm looking at it. Now I'm in my dream, and I'm looking at this bar graph of my system resources, and it's two-dimensional, and it suddenly becomes three-dimensional. Well, that's a homologous variation. Okay, now I see this three-dimensional bar graph across my screen, and I thought to myself, this looks like a city skyline. And no sooner did I think city skyline than the screen transformed again, and the two bars in the middle became really tall, the twin tower bars, you'd say, of a city skyline. So now it's gone to another homologous jump, so to speak, or variation. And then when I realized it was the New York City skyline, the bar graph changed into like a postcard of New York City, and then it became animated, and in my dream they fell at the same time, but in my dream these two bars start collapsing. You all know the visual on that. And it's coming down, and I'm looking at this in horror. It wasn't the same horror I felt at 9/11. In this case, was the horror of seeing my computer crashing. And so the towers came out. And fortunately, they collapsed into my computer's footprint. And anyway, so then the crash screen came up, which in Windows normally says, contact your system administrator. But in my case, in the dream, it had two big words there in black letters, havoc and wrecked. Well, then I woke up, and I realized, and I got thinking, I analyzed my dreams pretty quickly. Well, the associations are still kind of fresh, and I thought wrecked. Well, I could see where the word wrecked came from, because my computer crashed, the towers came crashing down, and you talk about car crashes, you talk about car wrecks, they're kind of synonymous. So wrecked, when my computer crashed, made some sense, but how about havoc? So I'm sitting there going, havoc, wrecked, havoc, wreaked havoc. You hear that the tornado has swept through the Midwest and wreaked havoc. Bad financial news, wreaked havoc on Wall Street. Wreaked havoc. So my mind went from crashed to wrecked to wreaked havoc. All in just a matter of, this all happened like in 10 to 15 seconds, tops, all of these homologous variations and associations. Now, I do want to point out that it's possible that wreaked havoc maybe wasn't wordplay. It could have been day residue. Maybe I walked by the television or heard on the radio, maybe somebody used the expression and I didn't quite consciously catch it. Maybe I passed the newsstand and it was on some headline. I don't consciously remember it. That's another possibility if you watch that discourse. So anyway, I need to get going here, and so we coined a new word, and maybe we started a new dance craze. Everybody's doing a brand new dance now. Come on, baby, do the transfer motion. I like to give lucid dreaming's true profundity some fecundity, and I utilize the tools of brevity and levity. And that's about it in a nutshell.